Hello. I'd like to introduce myself. However, not exactly sure what's going to become of all this. So for now, I'll just go by Corporal Randall. I'll give you a little background on me. Born and raised in West Baltimore in the 80s and 90s. My formative years were spent with my biological mother and grandmother. You'll probably hear more about them at some point, as they'll tend to be primary characters, I'm sure. My grandmother raised 8 children, me, and helped raise 16 plus grandchildren in a small place in the projects of Baltimore. Most of them went on to become pretty accomplished, but I digress. In my youth, I would often be mocked for being too patriotic. Well, I guess they saw something in me I didn't see in myself, because at 19, I was stepping off the bus and onto the yellow footprints of Parris Island, joining the United States Marine Corps. My grandmother was a maybe 5'4", 100-pound wet woman. But I assume that she's probably where I got most of my patriotic notions from. We voted with her every time she voted. She would walk me to my school, which is where our polling place was, and she would explain to me who she's voting for and why. We would sit at night and Tom Brokaw was on, or Peter Jennings, and we'd watch world news and national news. I would say she was an extremely, let's say she was a classical Democrat, which is where I come in. See, last week I sat down and I watched the Democratic National Convention. It had me fearful for my country. Fearful for many reasons. Primarily because I feel that the country is in distress. I'm not really watching much of the news anymore. It's hard to. I mean, whatever you watch is telling you about how bad everything is. But they conveniently leave out certain things. I started by mentioning I was from Baltimore. When I was growing up, my neighborhood was 8 times above the national average for violent crime. I joined the Marine Corps, and one of the pitches that actually worked because I'm a numbers guy was I had a statistically better chance of going to war in the Marine Corps and coming home alive than I did of actually going to school in Baltimore and making it home alive. Okay, so let's fast forward to this week. I'm sitting up in my room watching the RNC, and lots of platitudes, lots of patriotism. But there was one man that yesterday that got my heart racing and made my spirit of patriotism excel to a level I haven't heard very recently. Maximo Alvarez, a small gentleman who was an expatriate from Cuba. Maximo and I have something in common. I'm sure we have many things in common, but the things I'm thinking about right now is we've had the unfortunate pleasure, or displeasure I should say, of actually seeing what's beyond our borders. Maximo's quote was, "If I gave away everything that I have today, it would not equal 1% of what I was given when I came to this great country of ours. The gift of freedom." of choice, freedom of association, freedom of religion, freedom of thought. That last one, that's going to be the one that gets me in trouble. Because I may not always have the same views as you. I'm okay with that. I'm willing to sit and listen to you explain why you feel the way you do. And I'll explain why I feel the way I do. Difference is, I'm probably going to come with lots of math. I'm a numbers guy, I said it before. So, I plan to do this regularly and give you an honest and prayerfully well thought out opinion on the events of the day. Hopefully I'm able to give you some insight on someone who you possibly disagree with, but someone who, even though you may disagree with them, you'd have no problem sitting down and grabbing a beer with them or a bourbon. Well, that's the end of this one, but welcome to the ride.